sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one. Only one.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I am, of course, Jared Quan, the League of Utah Writers League historian. I've done some other stuff in the past too, but it's really not as important as League historian. I'm super excited about it. I'm joined today with Johnny Worthen. I'm excited. We're going to have several guests, and I'm hoping at some point actually to have a collage of individuals to talk about stuff later on, but not right now. Right now, I really want to focus on Johnny, the man, the myth, the legend, past president of the League of Utah Writers, Writer of the Year recipient. Tell us a little bit about your writing, Johnny.
It's really good. I love my writing. No, well, my writing is, I call myself a multi-genre, now hybrid author. I got into multi-genre on accident, and I've just kind of started with it. We can talk about genres, but I say that I am now 8 years into my 10-year plan to be an overnight success. That is my big goal. So I have 2 years to pull it off. I don't know. I'm that idiot that quit his day job to become a writer. Don't do that. I was in a good position. I could do it. So back in 2012, I faced with another life change. My resume reads like a list of things I would never do again as long as I live. So it's difficult to find a job because I won't do that or that or that or that again. So I haven't had a boss since the 90s. Yes. So I've been working for myself. I've been an entrepreneur. I've had several businesses. And after my last one, which was kind of a tough loss, we had to close it. I looked around for what I was going to do now, and I pulled out my bucket list, or just not necessarily literally, but I kind of realized that there are certain things in my life I still want to achieve. And on the top of this list, which had been there since forever, was I wanted to write. That's what I've always wanted to do. That's always that's the carrot that I'm always holding out for myself my entire life. If I can get through college, I can write. If I can just get through this job, I can write. When I retire, I can write. Weekends, I can write. I've always been putting it off. So here I found myself in this position. I said, okay, I'm just going to try it. I've always been writing in one form or another, some either in just newsletters or short stories or role-playing game. I wrote an entire role-playing game. I did a lot of role-playing writing. And I just actually had a couple of novels then I was working on, and I just kind of went for it. And I started doing it full time. And I decided, I kind of gave myself a plan of how I was going to become a writer. And that is by being a writer. In other words, I was going to fake it till I made it. And the idea was that I thought of what would a writer's life be like. They would spend this much time writing, they would edit, they would look for opportunities, they would live it. They would start marketing and all this. So I actually threw myself into it. Looked for all the information I could find. Before I found the league and other conferences and everything, it was just finding information on the internet, which went so far, not very far. And I really feel like I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. But I was working so hard that I did manage to burn through a lot of my bridges. Well, maybe that's not the right word. I did manage to burn through these mistakes quicker than some. And I just kept writing what interested me. And I'm still going on with it. I've been now I'm working now. Let's see, I've written 20 novels, 20 completed books, I think. And I have of those, 10 or 11 have seen paper, have been printed. The others are in line to be printed or are still looking for a home. I debuted in horror with a book called Beatricel. That was the first book I got published, and hallelujah on that. And I had, yeah, I thought it was a love story. I wrote a book. I thought it was a love story because I have this. I didn't study creative writing in college. I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in English. So when I got into writing, I didn't necessarily know plot structures beyond. I wanted a theme. I wanted to work out an idea, and luckily, I've been reading my entire life, and uh, I've been exposed to creative fiction and storytelling in the form of movies, television, as every other American has. So it's almost innate. So then I started writing these things, and like I say, I thought I was writing a love story. Well, that quickly turned into that was a horror. I got picked up by a horror press. Then I wrote a story. I wanted to break into young adult, and I started thinking about how to write what a young adult was. And I put that aside until I wrote this thing. I've seen in the background. The Finger Trap was my coming out role. This is probably when I knew I wanted to continue doing this. This particular book, highly autobiographical, not the super best written book, but ridiculously fun. And if I wrote it again, I'd probably make a couple of changes. I saw a comma I was missing. But but in that book, which is kind of autobiographical, there comes a moment when Tony Flanders, the main character, there has to decide that he's going to finish something. He's going to do something with his life. He's going to finish. He's going to go all the way through it. So he has this way of going like to 80% or 82%, and then giving up because it gets hard. And this is kind of how my life has been. I've been unable to stick to any career because it hasn't interested me. So my goal was to get the Finger Trap published. That nothing else would work. In order for the book, for the genre, no, for the meta, if you will, the meta of the book to make sense to me, it had to actually go 100% of the way and become a book, and it did. And then to get this published, I was having a hard sell on this one because it's unusual. It's hilarious, but it's unusual. By the way, it did win award. And I wrote Eleanor in order for people to notice this. Yeah, this becomes my bestseller. So I got this is part of the Unseen trilogy. This is the first book, standalone, young adult, paranormal, supernatural character study. And I love this book as well. I love this book, and I wrote a couple more. Anyway, so this got me noticed, and then I had a publisher finally reach out to me and say, "Okay, you keep sending us manuscripts. We will take one of these two. Which one do you want to sell us?" And because I was stupid and I was desperate or just insightful, I said, "Take them both or go away." They took them both. That was my breaking into publishing. But boy, I tell you, the whole trying to break in, that's a killer. What they don't tell you about, I mean, you take all kinds of writing classes and you go to meetings or conferences and everything. But what they probably don't, kind of what the ugly truth is, there is so much rejection in this business. It is soul crushing. And it's sometimes it's personal, but sometimes it's not. But it's so much of it. And just coming to terms with that is a lot of how I've developed as a writer. I'm to a point now. I luckily, success follows success. So once you break in, it gets a little easier. You don't have to fight your editor on every single and or an or. But it's still never easy. There's still so much rejection and the need. The other thing is I was doing this alone. I didn't even know a writing group existed in this state when I started. That was before the past presidents was there. But the League of Utah Writers, for example, I'd gone to conferences out of state for years. I'd go to the Tony Hillerman conference in New Mexico, and that's where I made my most. And that was my writing convention. I thought that was the closest one. Then I found the League of Utah Writers, and I joined. I still did that. I was at the last Hillerman conference and still loved it. But I went into these conferences for this specific reason, to know that I wasn't alone in this rejection pain. I know that sounds stupid, but I just needed to know I wasn't alone here because I sure felt like I was alone. And even though it was intellectually I knew I wasn't alone in this writing thing, I just needed to talk to other people who were also going through this or believed in their book or were writing or going their own paths and meeting writers. And my goodness, did I learn to like writers. I really dig writers. They're just interesting people. Anyway, so now I've gone through 2 agents. Now I'm without an agent at the moment. The last one became ill. I did just place, before my agent, we placed my next science fiction. Okay, because keep in mind, I debuted in horror. My young adult is my bestseller. This is an adult mystery comedy. The Brand Demand back there is another. There, I'm surrounded by books. The Brand Demand is a contemporary political mystery. What a Mortal Hand is a literary horror. All these different genres. So I actually wrote a science fiction trilogy because that's what you do, right? Everyone has that science fiction trilogy they're waiting to write. So I wrote a science fiction trilogy and I managed to shop it, and I got it picked up by Flame Tree Press, New York and London, for release in November 2021. The first book of Kings, Queens, and Colonies will launch then, and I'm just ecstatic. I'm going to have, it'll be my first international book. I'm hoping to do, hoping the coronavirus mess is gone and I can actually fly to London for a launch. Wouldn't that be cool? Go to Stratford and Avon and say, I wrote the science fiction. Anyway, and in the meantime, I've since the Tony Flanner book, which I keep bringing up, the rights reverted to me when that small press was bought up by another press, which doesn't do books like this. They only do young adult. So they kept the Eleanor series, and they let me have the rights back for the Finger Trap. But I love this character. I love this, and so that's what I've then become a hybrid author, publishing this series alone under my own press. So I now know a little bit about all sides of this. I also have picked up a gig as an acquisitions editor with a press that published that debuted me, the Omnium Gather Medium in California. I work for them as an editor. I have an acquisitions editor and as a content editor. So I have a slush pile. I pick books, then I help the author edit them, and then we bring them out, and then we cross our fingers people are going to read them. So I'm on both sides of it on that as well. For a day job, if I have such a thing, which I probably don't, I also teach night school creative writing at the University of Utah. Thanks to my writing career, I get to tell young people, or actually they're usually grown people who want to be there, what I have learned in writing, and we write together. So that brings you up to speed, I guess. Thanks for asking. Have a nice night.
Fantastic. Yep. Thank you for the very brief summary. I really appreciate that. That worked out really well. No, it's actually been fantastic watching your career. Now I joined it later, becoming a fan later, after you already had books already out there. But it's been fun watching your more recent stuff come out and see the progress, which has been really neat, really fun to that. And I mean, we've been at countless conventions together, been within a stone's throw of each other, and I've been able to, see the interaction with fans in your books. So it's been very impressive. I think that's pretty awesome. Well, cool. Let's dive into a little bit more about your involvement in the league. Now, for those of you watching, of course, this will be edited a little bit, but we're going to go into deeper dives on other topics and other interviews. We just want to start with the surface, the very surface. When did you join the league, Johnny?
Couldn't tell you. I think I joined it in 2013 at some point. Turning January 2012 is when I started this thing. I think I was toying with it in 2011, going to conferences, but I was out of the plane and plummeting by 2012. I was hoping the world would be destroyed, but some dyslexic Aztec got the 2012 and 2021 messed up. Oh no! Anyway, so I was plummeting, and I had like I said, I've been going to New Mexico conference with Ann Hillerman for years. And then I discovered, I don't know how I did it. I think I just started Googling. That there were writing groups in the state, in the city, around me. Oh my goodness. So that got me interested. And I think I joined, I don't know if I went to the conference first and then joined. I think I did. I might have gone to the 2013. No. Yes. I think I joined to go to the conference. I went to my first, it wasn't Quills then, it was just the fall conference. I think it was 2013, and it was out at the airport. And it was, it was okay, but I met more writers. And then I really connected, and we're talking about different things. And that got me hooked. I love the community of writers. I mean, writing is lonely. It can be very lonely. And there's a lot of, like I said, there's beyond the rejection, there's the creative tolls it takes. And so just having a community that knows this, my family doesn't understand it when I try to talk to them about, I got this plot problem, or I got another rejection, or I said, go get a real job. So I don't know. So I really enjoyed the interaction with other authors. And so I joined WordCraft because that was supposedly in my area, even though it's hell and gone. But I did that, and I enjoyed it. Had some good meetings. WordCraft is a really good chapter. It has its strengths are its talks. It gets very interesting people to give talks. They had Kirby last year, actually before the pandemic, and I really enjoyed that. And I kept my membership going, and I would go to the conferences when they came. Went to spring conference once, and then I was asked to present at spring conference, and that was cool. And I got to talk a little bit about what I was doing, because at that point I'd made a splash at other conferences, Life, the Universe, and Everything. A lot of people have their roots in that one. That's down in Provo, LTUE. And I had managed to finagle or fall and luck into a position of speaking on a couple of panels there. And at that point, that conference was much more writing oriented than it is now. Now it's got a writing track, but it's not the main thing. And I had they put me on a fantastic panel with talking about, it was a 3-day panel, and the first day was how to write a book, and then like the different processes, how to write a book, how to get it published, and then how to market it, those kind of things. I forgot the whole breakdown of it, but they had authors of every different level. They had Dan Wells there, and they had Michael Brent Collins there. So they had big names, and I was somewhere, since I had a book out at that point, I was there as a traditional published author, and then had somebody starting out and somebody hybrid, and it was just wonderful. And that really resonated, and that got me noticed to get called into spring conference, which put me in front of an audience, and I'm a happy guy. So that was easy for me. And I started joining every writing group I could lay my hands on. I joined the Horror Writers Association. Actually, I was a formative member of it. There is a Utah chapter of the HWA, and I was one of the what are they called? First members. What are they called? Those
like a founder or
founding members.
There you go.
I was a founding member of that. I still. I've gone to a few Stoker cons. I've spoken. I've taught at a few Stoker cons. So anyway, so there's that, and then there was this other writing group that was forming, who almost shall be nameless, the UAA, United Artists. I don't know what it's called, Utah Artists Association. No, that was a little later. So anyway, I stayed in the league because joining every organization I could find, meeting as many writers as I could, getting information, learning about things, making contacts. How do you do this? How do you find this? Will you look at this query letter? All those kind of things. Or just knowing, are you having a hard time writing? Oh, you are. Okay, good. Me too. Then I think the thing that pushed me over the edge for absolutely never loving the league is I have this thing. Sometimes I wonder if I peak too soon. And there was 2014, I submitted Eleanor, which I like, as into the book contest. And I threw my hat in the ring for Writer of the Year. And I didn't think anything of it. I was crossing my fingers for Eleanor for something. But I didn't think anything of the Writer of the Year. I just threw that in. And they, again, because at this point the league was in trouble. It was in financial difficulties, or they were just very wise. And they actually asked me to give the keynote at the awards banquet that night. And this was up in Logan, I think. No, what was it? Logan? I think it was. I remember Amanda was president. I can't think of what it was.
I believe 2015 was the Logan conference.
But, then it was 14.
Yeah.
There was one before that. I think that was in Layton.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it was in Layton before.
Yeah. Nevertheless, so I'm there, and I was asked to give the keynote, and I'm stupid enough to think I still have something to say, so I actually wrote a keynote. I loved my keynote. I wrote it, and I not being able to really give a lot of advice on how to become rich and famous or how to get published or what to write. I concentrated on what it meant to be a writer, what the responsibility I saw a writer had. And that was, that we are witnesses and what it is to create. And it kind of, it forced me to formulate my own opinion and beliefs about the craft, about art, and put it down there, which is one of the things that writing does, is it allows you to actually take the jumbled thing and focus it and organize it and be able to present it. It's one thing to know something, and it's another thing to be able to show somebody else that. I just basically gave a love letter to writing. And then Eleanor went and won Gold Quill for the best young adult book of the year. And I went, my jaw dropped. And then I was named Writer of the Year. My jaw dropped farther. And it was stunning. It was absolutely stunning. And I still consider that the highest honor I've ever received. I'm still waiting. By the Pulitzer, that might compete. The Nobel, maybe. But at that moment in my life, in my career, that was such the validation I needed, because I had been in this. I had been probably querying since 2011, and on my own falling since 2012. So 2014 rolls around. I've got books out. The sales are okay. No, they're not. They're what they are. They're books. And so much rejection. It was just so wonderful to get that validation from the league. And it was actually just frosting on the cake of validation I had gotten from all the people around me, all my writing friends who we'd kind of joined together and, marching on into the future to bigger and better things. So at that point, I wanted to be a part of it. I asked to be brought in. I think at that point there was I don't remember when I jumped in. I think it was under Chris. Yes, Chris. Was Chris after Amanda?
So Chris was after Amanda, and I was after Chris. Yeah.
Okay. So during Chris, which is the next year, I volunteered to be committee chair. So I actually was conference committee chair.
And of the spring conference, which was my spring conference.
Oh,
actually,
yes.
The 2015.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Spring conference. Yeah.
That's right. And I tried to make it, I'd gone to a lot of conferences, so we had an idea of what they were supposed to be. It's, now what we do for a conference is so much more complicated than what it was then. Isn't it?
It's so much better than what
it is.
We got lucky that nobody came in. Just I was terrified that entire conference that somebody's going to come in and say, this is garbage. This is terrible. This is the worst conference. And people just go, this is so wonderful. And I remember that you paced the conference more than a dozen times and gave yourself some blisters on your feet.
I went to every class. I went to every class, made sure everything was okay, because I just didn't want to screw it up. You were cool. Everyone was cool. I just wanted it to be as cool as I knew it could be. Because I think at this point I was I joined a writing group that had imploded because of political malfeasance. There were basically people turned into jerks. I don't know what it is. You get it. people get into politics and they just get power hungry. It's just stupid. And so that one imploded. We took the remains of that one, the good ones, and we made our own chapter, the Infinite Monkeys. And I demanded that we call ourselves the Infinite Monkeys. And if you don't know, that is a joke. And the idea is that if you put infinite monkeys into a room with typewriters, eventually somebody's going to type out Hamlet. But the main thing I wanted to put together, I wanted to emphasize in the creation of that chapter, and in to build it into the milieu of that chapter, was my belief that we can't take ourselves so seriously that we'll lose friends over this. Because it had already happened once and it was traumatic. Who needs that? We're all in this together. This is not a zero-sum game. Your readers can be my readers, your friends, mine. The competition is not really there. We're artists. None of us are going to be millionaires on this. Maybe somebody is, maybe me, but probably not. So we have to go into it with a much better attitude. So I demanded the Infinite Monkeys, and I became vice president of that chapter. And again, I constantly stressed the idea of fellowship as being the key. In the last quills, I'm all over. I'll get back to you, Jared. But in the last quill, we had, I got to choose the motto, and it was community, opportunity, and excellence, which I think are the keys of the League of Utah Writers. And the key of that is community, because the opportunity and the excellence, whether or not you get published or whether or not your book is good, is truly secondary to the human experience. I am a writer, but first and foremost, I study the humanities. And I love people. I try to believe that people are good. These days, it's not as easy as it used to be, but I'm trying. And I think that everyone together, we have more in common than we have different. And so with that in mind, we really made a very aggressively inclusive chapter, that we would not, that we are friends, and so far it's done all right.
I love that you brought up the chapter. That was one of my personal favorite moments, because the Infinite Monkeys was the second brand new chapter that we had opened. The League had not opened a new chapter in years. As a matter of fact, chapters had closed, and we were looking to expand, and that was the second chapter. And it was such an amazing meeting. But I remember the pushback from people on calling it the Infinite Monkeys. There were 6 names on the board, and Johnny hit that a dozen times, if not more. And then it went out onto a Facebook poll for the chapter, and it got milled over, and it came close to getting shot down, but then it won in the end, which I'm glad it did. It's really fun. Name for a chapter. It really represents well. We're definitely going to get into deeper dive into the chapter stuff, and of course your conferences in later interviews, because there's a lot of meat on the bones when it comes to those topics.
Yeah,
there's so much good stuff in there, but I don't want to pick that apart yet. I mean, okay. I want to leave some cliffhangers for our viewers to.
You'll never know.
Not yet, of course. Of course, they'll be all edited together, and then they won't even know that we said that.
Then you'll know exactly. But I'll still have my COVID casual here.
There we go. So you kind of start talking about your favorite moments in the League. Tell me more about your favorite moments. Not necessarily like big accomplished moments, but your favorite moments, and not necessarily at a League conference, but just as a member in the League, something that happened in or around the League. What are some of your favorite moments?
Well, of course, I absolutely. There's kind of a general thing about how the League turned around after. But I don't know if it was me, if it was you, all of us together with a singular vision. That one late night when we decided we could do this, that was kind of fun. Personally, I've had some of the. I've made some great freaking friends here. I got personal favorites. I got to meet my hero, which is very dangerous to do.
And go grocery shopping with him.
And go grocery shopping and liquor shopping with him.
That's
and
right.
It was fantastic. And it was it was wonderful. It was we got to bring Tim Dorsey in as a speaker. One of the things we wanted to do with Quills, as you know, is we wanted to expand our guest list. Utah has a lot of writers. Utah really does create a lot of writers. I've heard it mentioned and talked about at other conferences how Utah has this thing. But anyway, so there are a lot of conferences to serve them, more or less. They're changing. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are gone, some are coming back. And one of the things that a lot of them do is they see the same guests over and over again because the same personalities keep coming, you know. And we have some good writers, you know. Brandon Sanderson's good. Dan Wells is great. You know, we have Brandon Moe. You know, we have some good writers in here. We have a few. So the idea is that and that Utah tends. We wanted to break the bubble, so we got to invite other people in. We wanted to deliberately invite people from out of state who our people had not necessarily had a chance to meet, or unfortunately might not have even known existed, as with Tim Dorsey, who's been a major influence on my writing, and that was amazing. That was amazing. It was. He's more of an entertainer than a teacher, but I loved him. I thought every moment with him was just fantastic. Second one was I got to bring Ann Hillerman into Quills, and that again was just like a dream coming true for me. I mean, granted, you know, bringing these major guests in is something presidents can do. So I recommend everybody be present, but that kind of wrapped it around because Anne's conference was the first conference I went to, and she had really had she'd affected me. That conference had really affected me. And then she wasn't even a writer when she was doing these. Then later she became a writer, and she was so gracious. And I consider her now my friend, my close friend. We still keep in touch, so that was great.
Yeah, and that custom sculpture that she got at the presentation. If you're a league member, you can probably still find it online someplace. It was gorgeous.
It was. I had I didn't, you know, since we're a charity, 513C, we're not really in a position to pay people a lot of money to come out and all this. But for my own personal reasons, I wanted to give Anne a thank you for launching me in my writing career. So I actually got a sculptor to create a one-of-a-kind Southwest sculpture to bake it and build it and bring it in for her. She's got, I think that it's been I think he might be making more of them now, but they'll never be the original. So she's got away with that. But and those were great moments. And the Quills on the whole are just, the conferences are fun. That I have so many great memories of just hanging. There's something called BarCon. If you've ever go to a conference, it's after the classes. I mean, the classes are all great. You meet your people, but afterwards you're just kind of hanging out together, either in the lobby or in the bar or sometimes on the roof with your friends. And it's like a sleepover. It is so cool. And you just get to be with your friends and your people. I had a job where I had to go to a convention every year, and I hated the convention. It was so bad. And I swore to God, I would never again, after I left that job, I would never again go to a conference that I was not interested in going to. I don't care if I lost my job, I wouldn't do it. So I've never missed a writing conference, to say the truth. So I've met great people. The awards are always great. I like how the league does an outreach. So many new people we've pulled in, that people like me that didn't know the organization existed, people who are interested in writing. I mean, you need that. Writing is it. Creativity is it. You need to have I think, particularly today's, you have to have some kind of outlet. I mean, you scream on paper or you scream. So, you know, I don't know. That's something that I think is useful, and that's always been good.
There's a shared memory I kind of wanted to drop in here that
shoot.
This was a big deal to me. From my perspective, this was an event that was one of those moments where it should not have happened. I don't even understand still the dynamics that put the event together. So I had 2 books published at the time, but I really only had one good one. I love my other one, but it's not good. It's okay. It's okay. I'm okay
But
with
it's
it. It's my baby, and I do love it, and I can love
Mhm.
my baby. I know it's ugly, but so I got invited to be on a panel at Comic Con, and it was my very first panel ever in like the history of any conference ever. And the
good
very
place to
first,
start.
the first panel was to be on a panel with none other than Johnny Worthen and Dan Wells and Larry Correia and Natalie Whipple and Dan Willis and I just remember I got into this room. I thought to myself, "Oh, it'd probably be one of those tucked away rooms." I mean, I looked everybody up and I was instantly intimidated. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And I walked into the room and realized so Comic Con doesn't have this room available anymore. They actually use it for stage space in the big conference space now. It cut out this room that was like a huge 500 people could sit in this room, and it was packed, and it wasn't just packed. There were people sitting on each other's laps. There were people wrapped around the room. There were people lined in the hallway. And I'm sitting on this panel. I'm sitting completely terrified, just absolutely terrified. And Johnny's like, "Hey, sit here right next to me." You know, I just, and he had to sense that I was terrified because he's like, "Here, sit right
I
next
don't
to
know.
me. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be such a good panel," he says. And I had prepared some notes, and the topic was bad writing advice, which
Oh, that's right.
which I thought was tremendous topic. I had prepared myself some notes. I had never been on a panel before. I didn't know etiquette. I didn't know when I could cut off or if it was okay to be cut off or if I should be appalled. I had no clue on any of these things. And we went through one quick round of bad writing advice. So I got to speak. But for the rest of the time it was mostly like, yes. Oh, I agree. Fantastic. Yes, kill the dog. Don't kill the dog. You know, turn left. Don't turn right. You know, make sure the light is yellow if he runs through it. You know, like it was kind of interesting. So the panel was a hit. Everybody in that room loved it. Just ate up the panel. At the end, people are cheering and screaming. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was huge. And I was just okay. I made it through the end of this panel. And Johnny leaned over to me and he goes, "Hey guy, have you ever heard of the League of Utah Writers?" And I said, "No, never heard of the League of Utah Writers. I had no idea what that was." And he goes, "Yeah, go look it up. Go check it out." And so that night I went home. Johnny didn't come with me during this part. I went home. I looked it up online. I was like, "Oh, this is very interesting. This could be something we can look into." And then the very next morning, first thing in the morning before the conference opens, I have a panel coming up, and it shares some of the same people that were on the night before. I had some amazing people. Natalie Whipple was on that one as well. Nathan Shoemate. It's so many people. I can't even name them all. But I was sitting off to the side, reviewing my notes, thinking to myself, how do I not look like a deer in the headlights for this second panel? Right? It was overcoming writer's block. And Johnny was walking through the conference, and he saw me, and he was a good, I don't know, 25, 30 yards away, and he like beelines it to me. He was walking straight. He glances over. He comes straight over to me, and he sits down next to me, puts his arm, "Jared, how are you doing?" I'm like, he remembered my name. Like, I was like, what? I was like, what? And he's like, "What are you preparing for? Like, what's next?" And I'm like, "Overcoming writer's block." And he goes, "What do you got so far?" And so I pulled up my notes. And you're like, "There's some good stuff here. What's your opening going to be?" And I'm like, I was just gonna say, hey, I'm Jared Quan. I've written some. He goes, "You know what would really knock him dead? You go, hey, this is Jared, and I've written some things. Hold on, it will come to me," and just like pause. And I did this very thing. I went in there, and I was the third person up, and I did that exact thing, and everybody in the room busted up laughing, and I was completely relaxed, and I killed it on that panel. And I thought to myself, if that's what the League of Utah Writers is, I have to be a part of that.
Well, I feel like I've been a mascot for the organization for a while, so that I think it plays. I think it plays. But no, that was a great con. That was a great Comic Con. It was fun to. It was great to meet you. I mean, that was the beginning of a great friendship that day. And those were good panels. Those were good panels.
Those are
Bad
really
writing
good
advice.
panels.
Yeah.
Yes. And I've pitched them every year. I know I love Blake, and he's got a hard tasks on his hard job on his plate. But
Yeah.
I pitch it every year. I'm like, a reunion of this panel I think would be so much fun, especially now that I'm seasoned and I know everybody.
I'll know everybody. It was pretty good. It was, yeah. My memory of that was people kept losing the thread that we're supposed to deliberately give bad writing advice.
Yes.
So I'd say begin with the weather. I said, no, don't do that. I said, shut up. We're giving bad advice. You know, I didn't say shut up because you don't say that. You said, shut up. But I kept saying, start with the weather, give your character green eyes, give yourself a good long first act to establish everything. You know, those kind of things. But it was and people said, no, don't do that. Anyway, I forgot who was doing that.
And that's when you got your hat. You got your hat on that panel.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, was it that one?
That was the one. I remember
wow.
specifically that they came and brought you the hat, and you were like, "What?" You were like,
"That was pretty cool."
Yeah,
I lost the hat. Comic-Con gives the hat. Comic-Con takes the hat. The last Comic-Con, I left it. They threw it away or something. I'm trying to make a new one now.
Sad times. That is such a good hat. It totally fit. It totally fit. I do have to ask, what was the inspiration behind going with the tie-dye on the branding?
Oh, that's probably just me lazy. Well, you know, because I'm not working anymore, right? I've given up the suits, and I've lived in suits. I've lived in a lot of, you know, I've been my own boss, but I still had to wear suits and things. And I just wanted to be comfortable. I've just kind of did one of those screw it kind of things. It became an issue at my first book signing, where my publisher was there, and he told me to dress up, and I came in tie-dye, and I kind of made the commitment that you know, I want to wear tie-dye, I want to be comfortable, and then it became kind of a symbol for me. I use it as a symbol now for my multiple genres, you know, and as art for art's sake kind of deal. And for me, it's very pretty. I just adore it. Tie-dye it's art. It's an art. It's what it is. All my tie-dye are handmade. I have artists. I started with artists from Eugene, Oregon. Now I get a lot of them from Etsy. I still keep track of my Oregon people. They send me shirts, and I buy them and send them books. But it's a piece of handmade, temporary beauty, and I, you know, when I wear it, I don't notice it, you know, because I'm looking out of it. But you do, and so it was told to me at a Grateful Dead show. Yes, I've been to the Grateful. I do. That you don't wear tie-dye for yourself; you wear it for your friends. And when you're at a Grateful Dead show and everybody's going, "It's a good shirt," you understand. So, and it's just, and I've also heard it said that given the choice, given the opportunity, most people would dress the way they did when they were happiest. So apparently shorts and tie-dye is just what I want to do. And so it's been very easy for me to continue with the brand because I don't get sick of it. I love it. It's comfortable. It's not easy to, I'm a connoisseur. I don't just wear any tie-dye. And it's become very easily my brand. Just because I kind of fell into it. And it's natural. It wasn't something I had to put together. It wasn't something I had to invent. It's just something I just didn't lose. So I started wearing a lot of tie-dye as during summers. It became my favorite thing. We used to go out to, let's see, one dead show a year, you know, for a while. And we just go once a year to Las Vegas, drive down to Las Vegas, watch one show because we didn't know better, and then hang out in Vegas with your friends. Again, it was one of those things, one of those moments, one of those annual retreats. And then I got into the Grateful Dead, and then I got into understanding art, and then I got interested in art, and then I saw some beautiful tie-dye, and I just had to have it, and then it continued on. So yeah, I've never looked back. I've had people complain. People tell me I'm going to have to lose it at some point in my career. I think those people are wrong, and you know, there's this later thing you get offered. You hear a lot that, well, you're gonna have to sell out sooner or later. Maybe I do, but I haven't had to yet. See, I write in multiple genres because nobody's paid me to write just one thing yet. Maybe the science fiction will take off, and I'll be a science fiction writer from now on. So I got to get all my contemporary horrors and young adults out now. But
not till your YA dystopian vampire book. That's the
I don't
one.
know. It's tricky. I don't know. I like, I love all my books. It's my motto became early on. I write what I want to read. That guarantees me at least one fan, and that I have to live that way. And I absolutely do. My favorite books are the books that I have written because I really understand them. And it's like the author really knows me inside and out, So he gets me, pushes my buttons. And so many of my books have been personal journeys. All of them have, no two books have come out the same. No two books have had the same process or the same, they haven't. They've just kind of all had their own birth and evolutions. But some of them definitely have changed my life forever. Finger Trap, of course, and What a Mortal Hand, this is the third cover. I honestly think this is great, but this is not for it. This I love this one. This one I went to a dark place. Helped out though. See, I think writing can be therapy. It should be. So So anyway, I stick with the tie-dye and I use it my excuse is that it's a symbol of my being a multi-genre author and a deadhead, and it hides stains.
I like it. I love it. Actually, ironically, I mean, I've used you as an example when I talk to people about marketing, how at any conference, if you glance around the floor, at Comic-Con especially, like you can get lost in the myriad of booths. You could be like, hey, I'm on aisle C, number 15B, and everybody's like, okay, aisle C, I'm kind of in the area. I'm kind of searching. You can almost be standing right next to somebody's booth who they've given you the exact location and not quite sure, is this the right one? Am I right here? And now every time I can find Johnny without any reference point, just glancing through the conference, oh, there's Johnny. Johnny's right over there. I know exactly where he's at.
We used to dress our kids up in tie-dye before with living in it just so we could find them in the airports. I lived in Eugene for a while, and it was much more common there. In Utah, this is a statement. There it was more camouflage. But I just find it happy. Tie-dye to me is just happy. Suits, with a little noose around your neck. I don't know. I know you do suits really well. I've never done suits well. Which
is okay. I tell people when I talk to them about marketing, I say, don't do suits. That's mine. Johnny's got tie-dye. I've got suits. Go pick something else. No,
but I found it.
Yeah.
I fell into. I didn't understand I was marketing for a long time, and then I ran into Lee Modisett with his vests, and another person I got to get to know in this. Another great moment is Jonathan Mayberry, and he has Hawaiian shirts, which also Tim Dorsey has as well. He has so it's like, I guess we do. I guess the great authors do have something going. Yeah.
I love that. And Jonathan Mayberry, what a
and the Comic-Cons are great. You see, that's something else I love about the League is I always used my booth just to encourage people to get together because the community of writing it's actually helped you. A lot of people want to be writers and a lot of people write, but they give it up. And what is it that keeps people going? Because I've had those dark nights of the soul, but having a support group is everything. And even if they don't hold your feet to the fire, say, hey, you got an anthology coming up, you got to write something, or contest, you're going to enter. It's just having people there to support you and kind of keep you in motion. I mean, I've gone, like I said, my resume reads like a list of jobs that I'll never do again, and there were a lot of them, aka Tony Flanner. But I've been writing now full time for 8 years. I probably should write more. Tell you the truth. So yeah, my 21st novel is the first novel that actually stuttered, and I think it's because of the end times here. So I'm going to probably I put it aside for a few minutes. It was a comedy that I think should have been done a different way. So we'll see.
Well, it'll definitely be opportunity. One of my favorite one of the moments, I don't know if you remember, is we're trying to figure out how to ensure that we're serving the league membership well. Like we were trying to just figure something out really quick, and we were looking at the contest really hard, and I know I get credit for this, but this is really your baby, which I love. Which the new Writers' Voices contest category, which gave more people opportunity to have their work recognized, to give them that stepping stool. Now we can go into, of course, more details on that another time, but I had to mention that because that was one of my favorite things. There were so many little things that we got to do that we're going to get to go into. Now we're not going to give you access into the attic of everything, but we'll definitely give you some backstage passes to some really cool stuff that we talked about, looked at. There's some stuff we tried. There's some stuff we were hoping we could try and didn't get to. There's still time, of course, for those things to eventually be put into the league. We have a lot of exciting ideas and a lot of exciting stuff. But really, I think we're at a good stopping point for this interview. The next one, we're going to talk about your Writer of the Year, a little bit more. We're going to talk about your chapter or your chapter retreats. We'll talk about some of those other deeper pieces, which I'm excited about. Thank you again so much for taking the time to be interviewed by this humble league historian, which I'm very excited.
I might have got you into the league, but you got me into the leadership. So
well,
I think we're even.
I dragged you into. I'm like, hey Johnny, no, it was good.
Yeah. Good man, excellent. Okay, well, thanks for having me, and I'll be here when we meet again.
Awesome, perfect. Hey, thank you so much.